Unfortunately, we couldn't get it tested in the supreme cold weather that came barreling through. It's usually we get a week or two of that minus 35 Celsius or minus 40, and we'll see what happens with the weather.
He made a career out of disappearing in plain sight, hiding behind bushes, under stairwells, inside places nobody would ever think to look, then waking up like it was all just a harmless game. For years, Steve Wallis felt untouchable, calm, consistent, the guy who could turn stealth camping into something millions watched to relax after a long day. But then something shifted, the upload slowed, the tone changed, and suddenly the internet started asking questions. What happened behind the scenes? Why did the energy feel different? And was there more going on than viewers were being told? Because when someone builds their brand on quiet simplicity, even the smallest crack feels loud. Rumors started spreading. Speculation filled the comments, and fans who once clicked for comfort were now searching for answers. So what really happened to Steve Wallis from home to haunt? The truth isn't what most people expect, and it's far more real than any theory online. At first glance, Steve Wallis didn't look like someone who would quietly dominate YouTube. No over-the-top thumbnails, no shouting, no manufactured drama, just a regular guy with a backpack, a small stove, and a habit of slipping into places most people would never dare spend the night. And somehow, that simplicity became addictive. His stealth camping videos felt like a secret you were in on. Sleeping in roundabouts, behind businesses, tucked into strange urban corners, places hiding in plain sight. He treated it like adult hide and seek, but there was real skill behind it. Timing, awareness, confidence. He wasn't reckless, he was calculated. That balance made it thrilling without feeling chaotic. Viewers weren't just watching a campsite, they were watching a quiet escape from normal life. And that's what made his channel different. It wasn't about survival extremes or flexing expensive gear, it was about routine. A simple meal sizzling on a tiny stove. A soft-spoken update about the day. The familiar sign-off that longtime fans could repeat by heart. In a platform built on noise, Steve built comfort. People clicked his videos to relax, to wind down, to feel like everything was steady for 20 minutes. But here's the part most people overlook. Stealth only works when you can disappear. The bigger his channel grew, the harder that became. Recognition changes the game. Once thousands, then millions. Know your face and your strategy. Slipping by unnoticed isn't so simple anymore. The pressure builds quietly. Expectations rise. Every new video has to outdo the last location, the last clever hideout. And while the videos still felt calm on the surface, something subtle was shifting underneath. The risks were higher, the spotlight was brighter, and the margin for error smaller than ever. What viewers didn't realize was that the biggest challenge Steve would face wasn't being discovered by security. It was something far more personal and far more permanent. Then everything changed with a single upload. There was no dramatic thumbnail, no cryptic title hinting at scandal. Just Steve, sitting in front of the camera, speaking in the same calm tone viewers knew so well. But this time, the steadiness felt different. He shared that his wife, Jessica, had passed away. No details laid out for public debate, no long explanations, just grief, delivered plainly. And that's what made it hit so hard. For years, Jessica had been part of the background of the channel, not always front and center, but present. Mentioned in stories, felt in the small personal moments he chose to share. Viewers didn't just see Steve as a solo camper sneaking into odd places. They saw him as a husband who'd go home and tell his wife about the latest stealth adventure. That quiet presence made the loss feel personal to people who had never met her. The comment section flooded instantly. Support, shock, heartfelt messages from fans who had watched for years, but never expected something this heavy. The same audience that once debated camping spots was now offering condolences. The tone of the entire channel shifted in a matter of minutes. But alongside the support came something more complicated. Questions. When tragedy enters a public space, curiosity often follows. People wanted to know what happened. They searched for explanations. Some assumed there must be more to the story, and when clear details weren't provided, which is completely understandable for something deeply personal, speculation began filling the gaps. And that's the uncomfortable part about being a creator during a crisis. Grief is private. But YouTube isn't. Steve didn't turn it into content. He didn't dramatize it. He simply acknowledged the loss and stepped back. Uploads became less predictable. The familiar rhythm that once defined the channel felt fragile. For longtime viewers, the change was undeniable. The calm escape they relied on was now layered with something heavier. And as time passed, the silence between uploads started to grow louder than any stealth camping reveal ever had. But the internet doesn't handle silence well, and what happened next only intensified everything. Silence on YouTube doesn't stay silent for long. When Steve's upload schedule became unpredictable, the comment sections and forums started filling the space for him. At first, it was simple concern. Is he okay? Is he taking a break? But concern quickly turned into theories. And theories, once they gained traction online, spread fast. Some people convinced themselves there had to be a hidden reason behind the scenes. Others dissected his tone in recent videos, analyzing pauses and facial expressions like detectives. The lack of detailed public information about his wife's passing only added fuel. When there isn't a clear narrative, the internet creates one. And suddenly, what was a deeply personal loss became a puzzle strangers felt entitled to solve. It's important to be clear here. There were no verified reports of scandal, no confirmed wrongdoing, no dramatic expose waiting to be uncovered. But that didn't stop the speculation cycle. In fact, the absence of facts made the rumors louder. Message boards and comment threads began repeating unverified claims as if repetition made them real. This is the strange paradox of online fame. Viewers feel connected. They've spent hours watching someone cook on a tiny stove in the rain, listening to quiet life updates, hearing small personal stories. That familiarity can blur boundaries. When something serious happens, the line between supporter and investigator disappears. And while all of this unfolded, Steve remained relatively steady. He didn't jump online to correct every rumor. He didn't issue dramatic statements addressing speculation point by point. He kept things minimal, focused, private. But that restraint created its own reaction. To some viewers, silence looked suspicious. To others, it looked like strength. The divide grew quietly, right under the surface of what used to be one of YouTube's most unified communities. The real issue wasn't just the rumors. It was the shift in atmosphere. The channel that once felt like a calm escape was now surrounded by tension. Every new upload carried weight. Every absence felt amplified. And just when it seemed like the speculation might settle down, another unexpected problem surfaced. One that had nothing to do with grief, but everything to do with being recognizable online. Just when the emotional weight of everything felt like enough, a different kind of problem started creeping in. One that had nothing to do with rumors and everything to do with identity. Fake accounts began popping up. People pretending to be Steve, messaging fans, leaving comments, even reaching out privately as if they were him. And if you've ever followed a creator during a vulnerable moment, you already know how dangerous that can be. Supporters are emotional. They want to help. They want to connect. That makes them easy targets. Steve eventually had to warn his audience directly that scammers were impersonating him. Think about that for a second. You're already navigating grief. You're trying to keep your life steady. And now you also have to tell your community, if someone contacts you using my name, it's not me. That's not just frustrating, it's invasive. Impersonation hits differently when your brand is built on authenticity. Steve's entire appeal was that he felt real. No flashy persona, no exaggerated character, just him. So when strangers start wearing that identity like a mask, it creates a strange ripple effect. Fans begin second-guessing messages. Trust gets dented. Even normal interactions feel uncertain. And it exposed something deeper about online fame. The bigger your name gets, the less control you have over it. Once your face and voice are recognizable, they become tools for people with bad intentions. It's one of the ugliest side effects of growing an audience. At the same time, being recognized in public also makes stealth camping harder. The whole concept depends on blending in. Staying unnoticed. But when your channel has millions of views, that invisibility fades. A single person recognizing you can turn a low-key night into a viral moment for the wrong reasons. So now the pressure wasn't just emotional, it was practical. Grief, rumors, impersonators, recognition, all stacking up quietly. From the outside, it might have looked like small issues, but together they started changing the landscape around him. And the real question became unavoidable. How long can someone keep stealth in their brand when the world already knows exactly who they are? The pressure didn't explode all at once, it built quietly. After the initial wave of support and speculation, Steve started easing back into uploading, but it wasn't the same rhythm. The gaps between videos felt longer. The energy felt different, not worse, just heavier. And longtime viewers could sense it immediately. He occasionally shared small life updates, mentioning time away for personal or family reasons. Nothing dramatic, nothing framed for sympathy, just brief acknowledgments that real life was happening off camera. But when you've built a channel on consistency, even minor disruptions stand out. Fans who once clicked without thinking now analyzed every detail. Some noticed he seemed more reflective. Others felt the humor wasn't quite as frequent. A few interpreted any change in tone as a sign something was deeply wrong. But here's the reality. Grief doesn't follow a production schedule. It doesn't care about algorithms. And it definitely doesn't reset after a few months. At the same time, routine was probably the only stabilizing force left. Camping, cooking, setting up a small shelter in a strange location. Those familiar actions might not just be content, they might be grounding. But doing that in front of millions adds pressure. You're not just coping, you're coping publicly. And that creates an invisible weight. Because every upload becomes more than a video. It becomes proof that you're okay. Every smile gets dissected. Every quiet moment becomes a discussion thread. The audience doesn't mean harm, but curiosity doesn't disappear just because someone is healing. Then there's the practical side. Stealth camping isn't easy, even in the best circumstances. It requires focus, awareness, patience. When your personal world feels unstable, even simple tasks demand more energy. Add the spotlight of recognition, and suddenly the mental load doubles. For some viewers, it seemed like the channel was drifting. For others, it looked like resilience. But one thing was clear. The carefree era people remembered wasn't fully coming back. And that's when a bigger question started forming in the community. Was this just a temporary shift, or was the entire direction of the channel quietly evolving for good? That question, whether the channel was evolving, didn't come out of nowhere. It came from patterns. Longtime viewers began noticing subtle shifts in location choices, pacing, and overall intensity. The early days of slipping into the most outrageous spots possible felt rarer. The risks seemed more measured, and while stealth camping was still there, it didn't always carry the same edge it once did. But think about the position he's in now. Stealth camping works best when you're anonymous, when you're just another face in a hoodie passing through. But after years of viral videos and media coverage, Steve isn't anonymous anymore. Recognition changes everything. One person spotting him can unravel an entire setup. A single fan encounter can turn a low-profile night into a security issue. The bigger the audience, the harder it is to truly disappear. There's also the physical and mental toll. Crawling into tight spaces, staying hyper-aware all night, managing the satsensizing constant possibility of being told to move along. It's thrilling to watch, but living that over and over, especially after going through personal loss, hits differently. What once felt like a clever challenge can slowly start feeling like strain. Then there's copycats. As stealth camping grew in popularity, more creators tried to replicate it. That brings attention to the concept itself. Property owners get more cautious, security becomes stricter, public spaces become less forgiving. The very thing that made the niche exciting begins attracting the kind of scrutiny that makes it harder to sustain. None of this means the channel collapsed, but it does suggest evolution. When viewers say, "It doesn't feel like before," they're probably right. Because life isn't like before. The bigger picture isn't about one event or one rumor. It's about accumulation, personal grief, public attention, safety concerns, platform pressure. Over time, those forces push any creator to adapt or burn out. And that leads to the final piece of the puzzle, because when people ask what really happened to Steve Wallis, they're usually searching for one dramatic turning point. But the truth might be far less explosive and far more human. Here's the part most people don't want to hear. There wasn't a secret scandal. No hidden expose waiting to be uncovered. No dramatic downfall that explains everything in one clean headline. What really happened to Steve Wallis is something far less sensational and far more real. Life happened. A devastating personal loss shifted the ground beneath him. The channel that once felt like a lighthearted escape suddenly carried emotional weight. And while viewers saw a familiar face on screen, they were also watching someone navigating grief in real time. That alone changes a person. It changes their energy, their priorities, their tolerance for risk. At the same time, fame quietly altered the mechanics of stealth camping. Recognition makes disappearing harder. Pressure makes risks feel heavier. The more successful the channel became, the more complicated the concept grew. What started as clever hide and seek turned into a balancing act between entertainment, safety, and mental bandwidth. Then add the internet's constant noise, rumors filling gaps, impersonators misusing his name, every upload dissected, every pause questioned. That kind of environment forces adaptation. You either evolve or you get consumed by expectations that no longer fit your reality. And maybe that's what viewers were really sensing. Not a collapse, but a transition. The calm tone is still there, the simple meals, the understated humor. But there's a layer of experience behind it now, a weight that wasn't visible in the early days. Some fans interpret that as something being off. Others see resilience. The truth is, the channel didn't go from home to haunt. It went from carefree to conscious, from experimental to measured, from invisible to widely recognized. When people ask what really happened, they're often hoping for something dramatic, something shocking. But sometimes the real story is quieter. A man faced one of the hardest chapters of his life while millions were watching. He kept uploading when he could. He stepped back when he needed to. He adjusted when circumstances changed. And maybe the bigger question isn't what happened to him. Maybe it's why we expect creators to stay exactly the same, even when their world doesn't. So what really happened to Steve Wallis? Not a scandal, not a secret collapse, not some hidden truth waiting to be exposed. What happened was something far more human. He experienced a life-altering loss, faced the pressure of growing fame, dealt with impersonators and online speculation, and continued creating while navigating all of it at once. That kind of weight changes anyone. The channel didn't disappear, it evolved. The tone shifted because life shifted. The risks became more measured because the stakes became more real. And the man behind the camera had to adjust in ways viewers couldn't fully see. Sometimes we forget that the people we watch for comfort are living lives just as complex as ours. When their energy changes, we search for drama. But often, the real answer is growth through hardship. Steve Wallis didn't vanish, he adapted. And maybe that's the most honest ending this story could have.